Hi guys, welcome to Saltwater Saturday on Life of Gaz. This is where I aim to put a new sea fishing video on every Saturday at 5 PM. Hey guys, welcome to Life of Gaz. Now today I'm going to be going out on a boat doing a bit of sea fishing. It's been a while, I know, sorry I haven't posted recently, just life has just got in the way and I've not been able to get out for the last 6 weeks. So with any luck, today's session is going to do the trick and hopefully I'm going to be able to bring some fish over the rail on that boat. So let's get straight into some fish action here. Now this, I can assure you, is my second drift of the day and it resulted in my first fish. Now that first fish was a bit of a surprise because not only was it not a pollock, because that's what I come out here fishing for, but it was a little cod. Now being a little cod, I would have normally put a fish this size back, but coming up from the depths, especially at the rate I pulled this one up, then they don't tend to go back alive. So this one unfortunately did come home with me, just like all the fish I've caught today. Now I've got the fish to the surface. You'll see I was quite sort of lucky to catch that fish. I think what he's done is gone for the top end of the lure and the bottom half of the lure has hooked him in the belly. So if this was a match, obviously this fish wouldn't have counted, but I'm not fishing a match, so I'm going to count this fish as one of my first, as my first cod of 2021. Now the downside to wreck fishing is, unfortunately, from time to time you do snag up on the wreck. And I lost a few lures and even a weight doing this, but that is just all in all part and parcel of fishing in this style. After retying a fresh lure on there, it didn't take me long to actually pick up my next fish. And this fish was only small, but I pulled him up nonetheless. Now, the thing is that when this fish came up, a pollock on the back of the boat come up as well. And following that fish, the pollock at the back, there was a shark, probably about 10 foot, so we're assuming it was probably a port beagle that had come up from the bottom. As soon as it got to the surface, it went back down now, and from about half an hour after that, so a good few drifts after, not a single fish was caught on that boat, and we just assumed that that shark was prowling, and to be fair, we assumed that probably all the fish are right to be hiding, staying out of the way of one of the top predators of our bit of ocean. Then, after that time had passed, I finally hooked into my very first pollock of the day. Now, this one was about the average size of the fish that I was catching that day, and most of the pollock that I caught were between 3 and 4 pound. Having said that, I did get some bigger ones later in the session, but we'll come on to them a bit later on. This pollock, when it comes up to the surface, you'll see it spit out a few small bait fish. And one of the things that I was seeing quite a lot at this time was all the pollock that I was catching, they were spitting up small bait fish, as in they were spitting out white bait and occasionally spitting out small sand eels as well. So clearly there was a lot of bait fish down there, and there must have been a bit of a feeding frenzy going on, because they were quite readily taking those little sidewinder lures that I've been putting down as well. At the start of the session, the first couple of drifts I actually tangled up with my lure wrapped around my main line a couple of times. And what I did was obviously I changed something to stop that happening. And what I'd done first and foremost was I'd actually put that flying collar, which is the metal boom which I've got on my main line, on upside down. Why? 2 inches of metal being facing up rather than down makes a difference. But it certainly does. So if you do use those flying collars and you've had any of that experience, then let us know in the comments, because like I said, it's only 2 inches of metal and I don't know why it worked consistently at tangling up one way and consistently at staying away from my main line when it was facing the other direction. Now I think it's probably a good idea to let you guys know what tackle I've got on the end of my line just there, because I'm fishing a method which I've used for wreck fishing quite a few times, so if you've seen my videos before you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Now today I was fishing a 12 ounce lead which had a little bit of 20-pound line which served just as a weak link, so if the lead caught up then I'd just lose the lead and I could bring the lure and the boom back up to the surface. Now that little weak link of leader there was literally just around about 3 or 4 inches straight underneath the bottom of that flying collar. Now off of the boom end of the flying collar, which had a 10-inch flying collar on there, then I fished 25-pound to a swivel and then a 50-pound rubbing leader on onto the lure. Now I fished about an equal 3 foot of each, so my entire sort of trace length was around about 6 foot. Now that also meant that if I'd snagged up with the lure on the wreck, then I could break the line, and as I broke the line I could bring the weight back up to the surface, so essentially I would only lose half of my gear at the end of my rig rather than the whole lot each time. So that then attaches up to my main line, and my main line runs straight up through to my rod and my reel. So if you're interested in what setup I had for fishing today, then that is the setup that I was using. Now for the lures that I was using today, I was mainly using the sidewinders. Now sidewinder lures, especially the sandy or mimics, I seem to do very well on these all the time. And I tend to use the Cod Squad colours. So you'll see me using the favourite of everyone, the rhubarb and custard. You'll see me also using the hot pink, the cherry red, and that orange one as well. I'm not sure quite what that one's called. But unfortunately, what I do find with these lures, as good as they are at attracting fish and as good as they are at initializing sort of takes and bringing the fish onto those lures themselves, unfortunately they don't last long. You may sort of see every time I'm changing that lure, I'll catch 3 or 4 fish on them, and then you can start seeing the weight on the inside. So unfortunately, as good as these lures are for catching the fish themselves, I do find they tend to fall apart after a few good hits from fish. Now, something I've not got a lot of in this video is showing the actual technique that I'm using for retrieving the lures. Now, essentially, all I do, which is fairly common throughout wreck fishing, is I drop the weight down to the bottom. As soon as it hits the bottom, I give it 3 or 4 fast turns. What this does is that lifts the weight clear of any snags and obstructions, but also lifts my lure clear as well. Fingers crossed, most of the time it works. Now, having said that, as soon as I'm up those 3 or 4 turns, then what I'll do is I'll slow the retrieve down. My retrieve, I do vary the speed on it depending on how fast we're drifting. If it's a very fast drift, then obviously you don't need a very fast retrieve, because the retrieve helps the tail action work on the lure, and if you're moving through the water very quickly, just the water current itself will enable that tail action to work. Now, having said that, sometimes you'll see a fish show a little bit of an inquisitive bite on the lure, especially because I'm fishing on braid and I can sort of see everything that's happening down there through my rod tip. So if I feel one of these, then more often than not, what you'll see me do is just pause just momentarily, and that little initial hit is often followed by a nice take as well. At this point in the session, and the previous fish as well, what happened was the rhubarb and custard, the hot pinks and all the rest of the Cod Squad colours appeared to have stopped working for me, and it's the more natural colours that were working around the rest of the boat. So I had some very small shads which I could put on, which I thought were close to sandy or mimics, close to sprat mimics, which seemed to be what most of the fish were coughing up. So I swapped over to those, and luckily enough they seemed to do the trick, and they picked up some very quick bites very early on in the drifts. In this later part of the day, the fish for me definitely got bigger. I did have one small fish at about £2, which was a small pollock, but the rest of the pollock had increased in size from the sort of 3 to 3.5, maybe touching about £4 mark, and I was getting fish close to about £6. I had 3 of them, pretty much one after another, obviously broken up by that little £2-pounder. So later on in the session, the bigger fish seemed to come on for me. Having said that, around the rest of the boat there were some bigger fish than mine caught. I'm not afraid to admit the biggest fish on the boat was just over £9, was caught two rods up from me, and there were a few 7s and 1 or 2 8s caught as well. I suppose a good thing about a £6 fish in hell in my lure was the fact that I could actually fit my hand in its mouth to go and retrieve it, so I didn't need to cut the line or do anything like that and have to retie anything. I could actually unhook this fish just by hand. Slightly awkward, but still managed it. Now, I do definitely enjoy wreck fishing, apart from one little aspect that fishing out of Fleetwood to fish out to the wrecks means it's about a 14-hour trip, so it can be quite tiring, especially when I was using my left hand constantly on the reel. When it came to filleting the fish later on that night after I got home, my fingers kept cramping up, so clearly need to work on a little bit of my fitness using multipliers. But then again, when I'm on the beach, I tend to use fixed spools more than anything else. Well, we're getting on towards the end of the session there, and just a couple more drifts left in it, and I managed on my final drift to catch my final fish. And this final fish, just in the way we started, turned out to be a cod, although this one was a bit bigger, probably just over £2. But really happy to see them, because I've not caught cod all year, not since probably this time last year when I had 1 or 2 off the beach. So all in all, really pleasing day, really enjoyable, great to get back out fishing, and I can't wait to get back out to the beach and see what that can produce for us as well. Well, now that was really enjoyable. To be fair, I have missed going out for quite a while, but having said that, if you guys have enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button down here, check out my latest fishing video over here, and my sea fishing playlist up top.